I'd also be interested in asking you, as you kind of pointed out, you said, you're a woman in a male dominated industry. And I think you're specifically talking about the commercial aspect of real estate because it tends to be the other way on the residential side.
Hmm.
Um, so if there's any, moms or women, or single moms listening to right now, what piece of advice would you give them if they were kind of thinking about or wanting to be the next Erin Thomas?
See, I would normally tell this to the women in private so the boys don't hear it, but I'm going to put everything on the line here. Okay.
That's why I'm
Uh,
asking, girl.
ah!
Hello and welcome to Motion Matters. This is the entrepreneurial podcast where we talk about the trials and tribulations of entrepreneurship. Today, I have a special guest. Her name is Erin Thomas. We met at a mutual mastermind meetup that we're both part of, and she has a ton of experience in real estate as an agent, as an investor, as all the above. And so I reached out to her and said, could you pretty please, with sugar on top, come on and share some of your knowledge and your story about how you got to where you are today. So with that, I'd like to give a big, fat, warm welcome to Erin Thomas. Thanks for coming on to the show today.
Of course, Jamie. Thanks for having me.
Yay. I'm really excited about it because I've met you at the parties and the mastermind parties, that is. And you're just a wealth of knowledge. And I'm excited to have this time for you to elaborate on everything that you've done. And so with that, can you kind of give us some background about who is Erin? Where did you come from? And how did you get into entrepreneurship? And share a little bit about your background.
Yeah, let's do it. So I would say if we want to go all the way back, I was raised, people come into real estate and they have those stories of, the hardships and things they endured. And I didn't have that. I was raised by incredible parents, very blue collar. We lived in an okay area, not a fantastic area, in a good house, but we had everything we needed. We got by. I'll tell you that my mom and dad today, when they comment on what I'm doing, they always say, and for lack of better terms, because I'm pretty transparent here, that I have way bigger balls than they do. And out of I'm the oldest of three, and we've got one brother. I have one brother, and my brother does really well. But like, just my ambition and what I go after and what I do and the risks I take, like they just don't understand it. And what they don't understand is even though they don't do real estate or are comfortable with what I do, things that they did when I was little are what got me here. So my
Mm,
best example is, my parents do everything for everyone. They are the best people, like best hearts, big hearts, everything. And when it came time for me to go to middle school in Cleveland, I was going to go to this school that was, metal detectors to walk into, just not the place that you want, your young daughter to go to. And
mm.
so my mom started, she became a clown actually. And she became a clown to pay her way through college. And since then, she's worked at the Cleveland Clinic. And her doing that and having that hustle is what got us to go to Brunswick and get me into a better school system and to start setting me up for my future. And so I probably haven't told her this, but the truth is like that hustle from her and my dad had worked at the he worked at the Parma Heights service department since he was
Hmm.
18 years old. And he'd 16-hour days, 22-hour days if it was snowing, like putting in the hours and showing the hard work. And that hard work from him and the hustle from her, that's how I got where I am today from a very early standpoint. But
Yeah.
yeah, so blue collar, typical raising.
Well, that's awesome. And I think that that's awesome that you shared that you kind of had that reflective moment. I'm sure you've thought about it before, but I too recently just kind of had that old moment too. Is just how much impact your childhood really does have on you, even things that you're not even cognitively thinking about, but subconsciously have such a massive impact on who you are today and kind of how you handle things. So great. So mom and dad inadvertently or
Yeah.
intentionally
So
shaped you into who you are. And then what happened when Erin graduated high school though?
Yeah. So I graduated high school and I thought I was going to go into musical theater. I mean, if you know me, I graduated with chords in theater. I was in show choir and all the things. And I just thought that was going to be the path for me. And my personality, I think, exudes that. Maybe it makes
Yeah.
sense now. But what happened was I got a polyp on my vocal cords. And so as I was doing my auditions, I kept losing my voice and I didn't understand why. So I went to the
Mm.
doctor and it turns out I had a polyp, which is basically like a pimple on your vocal cords. The more I used it, the larger it became, and then I couldn't talk. So
Mm.
obviously there was not going to be a career in that because the only way to get rid of it, well, there's two ways, is I could stop talking completely for months, which
Oh.
was never going to happen.
Oh.
And surgery could remove it, but surgery could also cause a scar that would permanently create that same effect. So
Mm.
it's a very large risk. So that wasn't the course for me. So I went to OU where my dad went to college and still trying to figure out what my path was going to be. And I'll be honest, then I was confused then. I was young. I didn't know what I was going to do. Maybe it was going to be medicine because I love the human body and science. Um, but I also just didn't love the structure of sitting in, like, if I were to think about myself working in a hospital today, oy vey, like, I can't even imagine that setting for myself.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know. So I came home. I helped take care of my grandmother for a while. I lived in her house and helped with that and kind of kept trying to find my place. I thought I was going to go into, um, why did I keep losing my voice? Train of thought here. I thought I was going to go into PT. So I started at Tri-C, going into physical therapy. Like, I love the human body. And then I had my son, and that was right when I had waited my 2 years to start the program. And so here I'm going into this program and came to find out that everyone graduating was graduating with a PRN, basically like a substitute teacher of healthcare. So
Mm.
you didn't have a full-time job. And I just had this baby. Like, I am in school and waited 2 years because I wanted that stability, right? That money, that to do and figure out what that career was. And here was this other roadblock that kind of stopped that. And so it's like, what am I doing? So I
Yeah.
ended up I was working at that time at a high-end detail shop, and that person saw my talents and offered me a full-time position with him at the salary I would have made if I graduated from PT school. And I couldn't
Wow.
pass it up.
Wow.
Yeah, so I ended up staying with him, and from him, he was really great at what he does. Like, he's really, really good, but he wasn't the greatest at business. And so he
Mm.
would overbook himself, which clients got angry, so that he's paying out more money to try and make them happy. And there's just it was this high ebb and flow and this high and low, and it was hard.
Yeah.
And I started seeing inconsistency, more instability, and I was like, I need more. So I ended up taking a job doing the social media and marketing for a small real estate brokerage. And I figured, and I actually went to my interview and said, look, I've had my own company before. My husband and I had started a t-shirt company at one point, had my own company before. I don't think you need a degree in Facebook. I can handle this. And I will say that social media today is different than social media was 5 years ago when I did
Oh,
this.
heck yeah.
And I think there is more to it. So when I say you don't need a degree in Facebook, you probably do now. But at that point, you didn't. And so I took this job and started, hosting his networking events. And almost immediately, he was like, you need to do sales. So he pulled me out of that role and taught me how to wholesale. I got licensed from start to finish in, I think, 6 weeks. Literally, I just blew through my classes online and got my license. And in total, for that first year, I sold 49 homes. I
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was a whirlwind. I didn't know what was happening. Like, I came in
W-
to do social media and I ended up selling 49 houses.
Wait, can we pause right there? Because if you don't know, I'm also a licensed agent, not nearly at the level of production that you are, because I do it on the side. But for anybody that's never dabbled into real estate, 49 homes out of your first year, that's phenomenal. So either one of two things, you either had an insane sphere of influence already established, or your gift of gab is at another level.
I would say it's more so the gift of gap, but there's also another piece of that. When people think realtors, they think the single family home. I've never done that. I was never good at that. It wasn't my sphere of influence selling their houses. What it was I was at a wholesale brokerage who had a really good business model. Most real estate brokerages would never adopt this model, but what they did, because they focused on wholesaling, which for anyone who doesn't understand what that is, that's basically going to a seller, putting a contract on the property to buy it, and then selling that contract to somebody else for more money. And so you don't need a
Mm,
real estate license for that. So what they did is they would go and they had a team on the phones signing up the deals. And then I became their first buyer's agent. I just kept bringing all the buyers. So you only had to do 50% of the work. They were bringing the deals, I was bringing the buyers, and so then we split the commissions. It was actually
got it.
split 3 ways because house got their cut. But that allowed me to facilitate more transactions for sure. The other
Wow.
piece is that I think the price points, because it was all investment properties, these are wholesale things, so it was just turn and burn on that level. And that allowed me to go through a whole lot more. But I do say, I will throw out that the statistic for realtors is, I believe it's like 88%, it might actually be higher than that, of realtors sell less than 2 homes a year, every year.
Yeah.
So 49 homes in 1 year for any realtor is, phenomenal. 10 homes for any realtor is still way above average. And people don't know that, because when you hire a realtor, like, okay, I'll just hire my cousin. The skill sets of someone who understands how to sell real estate are completely different than a realtor who knows how to sell a house.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was part of why I was intrigued by listening to you when I first saw you at one of the first masterminds, because you were having a side conversation and I was kind of in that same cluster, and I was listening to you and you were rattling stuff off, and I was probably 2 years licensed at the time, but I'm like, dang, this girl knows her shit, man. Like, because again, you're obviously very comfortable in the space. You've done it 100 times. It's the same thing, right? It's the 10,000 hour rule, right? Like, you had put in the work, and so you know what you don't know, and you're very confident. And so with that brings the ability to be able to draw people in. So that's incredible. And so I guess, kind of to recapture what you just said, to some extent, you kind of had a lead generation when you kind of came in, but then it was your job to close the deal.
Exactly. So they brought the deals, I had the deals, and I would go and find the buyers, which is interesting because now I barely even work with buyers, but I did start as their first buyer's agent to get
Yeah.
those deals done. Yeah.
Yeah. No, kudos to you still. I mean, that's great. So there you are, you're rocking it. And my guess is this story's somehow going to transition into a revelation where Erin realized, I need to do something more.
Well, the truth is COVID hit, and
Oh,
yeah, I know it hit for everybody, right? So COVID hit, and what COVID did to the real estate market is the opposite of what it did to everything else, right? The real estate market boomed,
yep.
and price points skyrocketed, and everything. The people who were signing up these deals no longer could sign up deals because people weren't selling them for cheap anymore. They were selling them for retail or higher. And so I realized I have no money coming in because they're not signing up deals, and my skill set wasn't in signing up deals. So what do I do? So I had walked an apartment building in that year with another agent. And I felt like he was dropping me hints, but didn't quite know what that meant. So I called him, said, "Were you trying to tell me something?" He's like, "Yeah, you need to leave. You need to go to a better place." And so he was with the Easy Sales team, which is where I transitioned to. And so now I get to say that I'm a top 3 agent on the #1 team in Ohio, and I
Wow.
absolutely love it. I'm a coach on that team now, and so I have my own mini team, and I have always only worked with investors. I'm investor exclusive, which I don't think most realtors would say, or maybe they wouldn't admit to. But I don't, if you want to buy a single family house, if you want to look for your forever home, I am not the girl for you. And I will
Mhm.
happily point you in the right direction of someone who is going to be best for you.
Yes.
But I know my skill set is not in that. And I can give
Yeah.
a good example. My sister-in-law, I sold her house, and yeah, so I sold her like a house that she was living in and bought her the new house.
Yep.
And it was a great house in Menor, easy to sell, perfect area, perfect price point. Everybody wanted it. She bought an $800,000 house, amazing house for her to move into.
Hmm.
I didn't know to switch the possession date. So here she is rushing out of her house while people are trying to move into her house. And because I didn't know, it's one of those things that, like, investors, I just send the investor or their property manager to the lockbox to get the keys. I'm not
Yep.
even there for that. All of a sudden, how are they getting all their furniture out of this house while the other people are moving it in? And you just don't know what you don't know. That's not my skill set. So investors are where I stay. It's if I can give everyone one piece of advice to become an expert in any field, it's to find your niche. And for me, it was definitely working with investors. And
Yeah.
I wasn't afraid to go in the $60,000 houses and step over the dead animals and, have the conversations with the tenants. I've seen it all. I am not afraid to get dirty. People laugh when they see me do walkthroughs because I will climb through windows and do whatever it takes. I do. But that's what an investor agent takes.
Yeah.
It's not just walking through pretty houses. I've climbed in windows to walk through to see what the inside of this building looks like. I have to do it.
Yeah. No, I think that's phenomenal. I don't know if that happened to you instinctively or again, if you just kind of started narrowing down in on the fact that you were going to work primarily in commercial, most likely, and mostly always with investors. Because for me, and I think for a lot of new agents, you want to get your hands on anything that somebody will give you because you just want to get a deal, right? And so I was not as disciplined as you. I think I was kind of spread all over the place, and kind of dabbled in a little bit. So I got another gold star for you, Erin, on that. That's really good.
It's also finding those markets. Like, honestly, it was slim pickings. There weren't realtors who wanted to work with investors. They would pass them off. No one knew how to speak the language, how to run the numbers. When I realized that I could do this and I knew this information where most people didn't even care to learn it, I was like, well, here's an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I seized that opportunity. And seizing that opportunity is what got me now into doing all commercial and leading an investor agent team so that we can, dominate all aspects of the investment real estate side. But yeah, it was learning and just diving in and committing to it. Like, I only do investments. I only want investments. And that's how I started.
Yeah. And not to keep like hammering home how fabulous the things are you've accomplished, but I'm sitting here thinking about it. It sounds to me like we probably started in a similar year time frame. I got licensed late 2018. When did you get licensed?
2019.
So the fact that you've able to accomplish and kind of built your business to where you are, I think is phenomenal. I mean, that's 5 years. I mean, it's a decent amount of time, but as you just kind of attested to it, statistically speaking, that just doesn't happen. In fact, I think there's another statistic that's even higher than that. If my mind serves me right, is that the vast majority of real estate agents quit within the first year because they can't even sell a house, let alone two.
It's hard.
No, that's really, really good stuff. So that's where you're at today, correct?
Yeah. So today I like to say that I'm investor only and I focus and specialize in commercial multifamily and portfolios. I can do any type of commercial, and that is where my entire business is going to be next year. This year, I had such a really amazing client base of duplexes, and I'm probably 85% at this point listings. So if someone wants me to list their duplex, I'm here to list their duplex. It's what I'm good at. I can sell it easy. I know it. But moving forward, goals and trying to hit the things that you want to, I am going to be primarily only commercial. And that's why I'm currently building out the team below me, where I'm teaching these other agents what I've done, what I know, how I do things, so they can, of course, create their own method. Like, that's what I did. I pulled, I'd asked 3 people the same question because I wanted to know how they each answered it. And then it allowed me to formulate my answer to that question. And so taking on these people so that I can take these leads and these amazing clients that I have or that come to me or that just need a safe place, an investor agent they can trust, and I can hand them off to somebody who will know how to do what they need to do, run the numbers, and, find them the right deal.
Yeah, no, that's phenomenal. And it's just going to cause you to be able to expand even more because obviously you're working with those people. I don't know. I know you talked about your high school, but I don't know if we mentioned this. And so just for anybody listening, what area of operation are you in? Let's clarify that for everybody listening. So geographically,
you mean like location?
Yes, geographically,
Sure.
where?
So I grew up on the west side of Cleveland, Old Brooklyn to be exact. And then I went to high school in Brunswick, which is a little bit south, definitely more of a suburb. And then now I live in Pepper Pike, which is an east side suburb because my husband's from Menor. So anywhere in Northeast Ohio, I've been and or lived in. So that's kind of my region. When it comes to listings, I have listed in Wapakoneta, Ohio. That was an automotive, listing. I have sold in Windham, Ohio, which is really southeast. So anywhere across Ohio, if you're a buyer, I have contacts in other areas to make sure that you're better represented because I can't represent you the best as a buyer in those locations. But yeah, so Northeast Ohio is my bread and butter. Anywhere Cleveland, Akron, Youngstown, Warren, Medina. I got you covered.
Awesome. So we've talked about how turned real estate into your entrepreneurial business, and clearly it's going exceptionally well. But you've also dabbled in the investment part for yourself as well, correct? Can you
Mm-hmm.
talk some about that?
Sure.
Let me frame it out a little bit better. How about this? So, at which point along the process did you then decide that I need to become an investor, and then tell us about your first deal?
Ooh, so it's kind of one of those things. If you work with a realtor and she rents her house, you might want to find a different realtor. So if you work with an investor agent and she didn't invest, you might want to work with a different investor agent, right? So, but it was actually really early on. So my husband and I, like I said, we had started this t-shirt company, and that was kind of in the same time frame as when I was waiting for that program, for the physical therapy program to start. And we
Mm-hmm.
ended up selling our company because I had boxes of t-shirts and a baby on the way and no room for any of it anymore, and no time to go sling shirts down at the Indians game either, because I was hustling and slinging them anywhere I could, and Christmas parties, everything. So that wasn't working, but we had bought a house in Willowick, Ohio. And that house we bought for retail. I didn't know anything about real estate at this time. We bought it for retail. My husband's very handy. He used to build homes. And so he did all this renovation to it. We did end up selling it for more money, which is great. Whether or not
Mm-hmm.
we got out the full amount that we paid in, I don't think so. But I would say my first real transaction happened within that first year of real estate for me. I was cold calling still at the time. And I
Okay.
had found this woman who wanted to sell a property. I went to her house. It was in Euclid. Now, Euclid to most people, again, my husband's from Menor, very bougie, suburby. Willowick is still a very nice Lake County area. Euclid, I love Euclid for Airbnb. I love Euclid for rental properties. But is that the place to raise a family? If you had the option, it might not be. But
Mm-hmm.
where this was in Euclid was it was south of Euclid Avenue, and it was in this area that's more like Willoughby Hills, and it was just a nicer area. So anyways, I go to this house and I talk to her, and the house was in really good shape. I could have done nothing, placed a tenant in there, and it'd been fine. I could have moved into it, but it wouldn't have been our style. But I was able to negotiate the price of 45,000 with her, and this was 4 beds, 2 baths, and it had a pool in the backyard. I
Wow.
got the house. Yeah, I got the house for 45,000. My husband and I paid a contractor at this time, and because he was working at the post office, and we paid them 45,000. So 45 purchase, 45 in, and then we ended up refinancing it for $150,000, and then we have a tenant in it for 2,100. And the funniest part about that story that I kind of skipped over is that I go and I walk this house and I talk to this lady about the price point. I call my husband and I'm like, "Hey, I'm buying a house. Did you want to come see it first?" And he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "No, I'm buying a house." And he's like, "Where?" I said, "Euclid." He's like, "You're not buying a house in Euclid." I said, "Oh, but I am. Did you want to see it first?" And it was funny because he was like, "We're not doing this." And then he got there and he's like, "Oh, okay, it's not that bad." And so that was our first real investment. We still have that investment because it makes us great cash flow. I'm
Yeah.
cash flowing like $1,200 a month on that house right now, so it ain't going nowhere. But it
Amazing.
was and it was like I read the book 10x is easier than 2x before I did, because our next big flip after that, and we had all the rental properties and stuff, but our next flip after that was I purchased it for $500,000. I got a separate rehab loan for $100,000. Out of pocket because of the way the rehab loan, or I'm sorry, out of pocket because of the way the $500,000 loan was structured. It
Mm-hmm.
was hard money at 15% interest. I actually only brought like $18,000 to the table, but I got 11,000 of that back as commission. So I really only brought like $7,000 to purchase this house. We spent a
Love it.
year flipping it together, and we live there now. And now we refinanced it, appraised at 1.1 million.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was our big flips. Now he's currently working on the home my mom grew up in, actually. We ended up purchasing that home, and so we're flipping that right now. But we're moving all into the multifamily space. We don't want a single family flip. I'm not even in that market for that to be where I'm working in. So
That's what
everything we're
that
doing, yeah.
that was going to be my next question, because I know that you work heavily with people in multifamily space. So I was going to ask if you were in it, but I'm assuming based on what you said, you're not there yet, but you're about ready to dabble.
Yeah, exactly. So when we bought this house, I walked it for an investor client of mine, someone who was flipping it. It didn't work for investors just because of the amount of rehab that was needed. But,
Mm-hmm.
small little tip here is that if you're living in the home, when you refinance, it doesn't have to be as perfect as it would be if you were going to try to sell it on market. So we didn't have to replace the garage doors. We didn't have to replace the furnaces. They're all working. They're fine. But because we lived here, we were able to get a better value for it than if we were just trying to sell it to a homeowner and figure out what value they would pay. So that was that side of it. Now, multifamily is where I'm at. My aunt's house came about because my aunt was living in it. She went into foreclosure, and so we had to save her from that. We got her into a better place, and now it's just a labor of love. I probably paid more money than I should have to get her out of foreclosure, but seeing the house my mom grew up in and renovating it and creating this new life for it, it's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine right now. But yeah,
Yeah.
multifamily space is where it's at. So now it's all apartments. We're looking for my husband is our primary contractor, slowly building out his team. He'll be doing the renovations for those so that we can keep scaling up.
Is there a point in the future that you see where Erin no longer does real estate and is a full-time investor yourself?
You know what? I have this pool inside of me with this conversation. I like to say right now that I build other people's portfolios while my husband builds ours. And that's true right now. But there's got to come a time where me finding deals that work, I'll be the one buying them. And that becomes a conflict of interest. Right now I've got, syndications that I can do, and I've put my commission into equity parts of the deal. And so I've done really creative things. I love creative financing, creative structuring. I've gotten creative on that side of it, but I'm sure there's going to be a time where it's going to be hard. Will I ever hang up my license? I don't know, because I can negotiate my own deals. I have access to deals. So I don't know that I would do that. And I've got some clients who I can't even imagine not working with and helping. So, I love my client base. I love real estate for that reason, is you can build these relationships, and I have these amazing clients that I work with just so consistently. But I think down the line, there's going to be this healthy blend where I have maybe a small handful of really strong investor clients or listings, and the rest of it is on, us. I will say this, though, is that I'm noticing this year in my personal business, multifamily is what I'm really good at. And that's naturally where it seems like I would gravitate towards investing. But I've actually kind of started exploring all the different routes, the self-storage, the office space, the retail, plazas, and exploring those routes, so that if my skill set is best in multifamily, and that's why these clients come to me, there's opportunities for me to invest in other product divisions that are outside of that, where it wouldn't create that conflict of interest. But, in 5 years, who's to say what's going to be there? I know what I want to do and what my goals are. How it will conflict, or if I can build a team to sustain both, we'll have to see.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to hear, but I also have another thing that I was thinking about that I wanted to hear your perspective on as well. I'm kind of shifting a little bit, and that is, there's so much talk lately about basically real estate agents becoming obsolete. And I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on that.
Oh, I don't think we can become obsolete, because I don't see many sellers. They call me not just because I can write a contract for them, but they call me because I have the deals. Being a wholesaler to start, my off market network is very large. So a lot of my deals that I close are off market. Right now, free plug, I have a 36 unit and a 27 unit, both off market. I've got a lot of hands on those deals. And so that would require sellers who are very busy with their other jobs to start making the cold calls and going on the appointments. And in my world, I don't see that happening, at least not with the level of investor that I work with. Now, in the residential world, there's a lot of changes that are happening. And unfortunately, while people thought that this was going to be a really positive thing, I think it's a negative thing. I think buyers are in a really difficult place right now. If you can't afford to pay your realtor's commission, and right now financing hasn't quite caught up to say we can finance this commission, or, concession, now that we have to call it. If they can't pay that, they can't be represented. And that's not good. We were in a place where it was just assumed representation and you were protected. And now If your agent isn't getting a large enough commission, they might not want to represent you on that deal. If you can't cover their commission, they might not want the risk of showing you the deal. And then what comes with that is buyers, when they know they're spending money, like to shop around. And so working with buyers is going to become more difficult for agents because they're going to want to feel like they're getting their money's worth. And if they
Yeah.
walk in that first house and it's the one, they might not jump on it just because they feel like they didn't get their money's worth.
Yeah.
When really your agent probably, you did get your money's worth. She did her due diligence and she did her research and she found you the perfect house, but people don't see it like that. And so I think there's going to be a wave where, and we're already kind of in that wave where people think they can do for sale by owners, and then they don't even realize what documents they need to legally sell the house that way. And so I think we're going to go through a wave of people feeling they don't need buyer representation. And then we're probably going to go through a wave of lawsuits where people bought properties without proper representation and didn't know how to read the disclosures, or things weren't disclosed, or they didn't have those documents to protect them. And then that wave is going to come with more ramifications. But in the
Yeah.
commercial side, I don't see how the commercial side, the people that I work with, they're too busy. If you're a CEO of a company, you're not making the cold calls. My benefit to you is that I can do this for you and you just get to make money.
Yep.
And that's what I do, So I don't see myself going anywhere anytime soon, but the residential world is going to be very volatile and confusing for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few deals. I actually have more deals going on now than I typically do because I spend a lot of our time on our investment properties as well, and then I'm clearly trying to also build this podcast on in conjunction with some transformational speaking. And so I'm not as in tune with all of the changes, but what I will say um is I think it's crazy that they put that out there like that. It seems so, I'm going to just say it just seems ass backwards to me. I feel like we went backwards, not forward,
I do too.
because the whole story that I was told, and I can't quote it verbatim, was that one of the reasons why buyers representation came out is because back in the day, in the 80s and early 90s, is that basically both sides always represented the seller in some way, shape, or form. And so the buyer never really had their true fiduciary person that was looking out for them. And so that's when they kind of made the laws and establishment that you need your own separate representation, and then obviously the compensation and all that stuff. But now it's like, it's making it where I think it's going to be incredibly difficult, or potentially could become more difficult for buyers to get representation. And so therefore we've created the same thing that was kind of
Yeah.
happening, decades ago. It's so silly.
We're in a world right now where everyone's trying to make everything even.
Yeah.
And what's weird about that is that the beautiful part about this world is that we're not all the same. I
Yeah.
read somewhere once, and it's like, yeah, women can do everything men can do, but you're not supposed to, and not like I'm a woman in a male dominated field. So like, I am all for that. But the truth is, like, women were supposed to at one time be the homemakers and be softer, and most of our personalities are softer, and they should be that way, where the dads are a little more masculine, and like, that's okay that we're different. And I just feel like everything is trying to make everything the same and everything equal, and everything's just not equal, and that's okay. Like, I think everyone should be treated equal. Like, let me just throw that out there. I'm not trying to say anything about that, but
Mm.
it's just there's differences, different qualities and different traits in people and things that are okay to be different. And it
Mm.
just seems like everyone is trying to make everything even Stevens. And it was, in this circumstance, the seller had to pay for everything. Well, the buyer should have to pay for it. But the truth is, the seller couldn't have paid that if the buyer wasn't there. So the seller was never paying everything. The buyer had to bring the money in order to allow the seller to pay any commission.
Yeah. I I'm just gonna say amen, Erin. Amen. That's what I'm gonna say. We could open up that can of worms, but I got some other stuff
No,
I would rather talk about, but that's why I was smiling and grinning ear to ear. Um,
let's do it.
I agree. Amen. Um, I'd also be interested in asking you, as you kind of pointed out, you said, you're a woman in a male dominated industry. And I think you're specifically talking about the commercial aspect of real estate, because it tends to be the other way on the residential side.
Hmm.
Um, so if there's any, moms or women, or single moms listening to right now, what piece of advice would you give them if they were kind of thinking about or wanting to be the next Erin Thomas?
See, I would normally tell this to the women in private so the boys don't hear it, but I'm going to put everything on the line here. Okay.
That's why I'm asking, girl.
Ah, so I like to tell women, we have a superpower. Use your superpower. I don't care what you think of yourself, how confident you are. You have a superpower as a woman, and that's because men are typically dumb. And we can, we can talk and walk and do things that men don't even notice we're doing. And a perfect example of this is I walked a property at apartment building, and this male agent, you could just tell he felt like I had no idea what I was doing. Well, when they feel like you have no idea what you're doing, they talk too much. So I acted dumb. Yeah. I don't have enough pride where I'm not going to take this advantage. So he just kept talking and talking and telling me things that he thought I didn't understand because it made him feel powerful because he thought I didn't understand.
Yep.
And then it was actually the next day my buyer came in town and we walked it again. And he said something and tried to hold back. And I was like, oh, but I thought yesterday you said blah, 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 blah. And he was like, oh, shit.
Yep.
And that's the superpower. Like, use it. Like, if I need to be strong and dominant in a situation because that's what I'm talking about, that's how I'll be. If I need to kind of fall back and play that, dumb little bimbo girl, well, I'll be that too. We have a superpower to understand, again, this inequality a little bit, a superpower to understand how to talk to men. Okay. And it's once you understand that and you can, it's kind of like a disc personality type, right? If you understand that they're quiet and you can match that quiet, or if they're a D personality, you can match that D personality, it's doing that same thing. And I think as women, we innately understand this. And so I just use that. And so women get so caught up in that, and just, I don't care if you're confident or not. In that moment, you are confident. Nobody is better. Nobody is smarter. Nobody is stronger. Nobody is prettier than you need to be in that moment. And then go run behind the door and sweat and cry and do whatever you had to do. I've probably done it all. But in these moments, you have the opportunity to step up. And don't let, because someone's talking you down to you, don't let that make you feel worthless. Use it.
Yeah.
That's where your strength comes in.
I think that's great advice. And I thank you actually for being open enough to share your secret.
I don't normally say that men are stupid on podcasts, by the way.
Yeah. It's all good. It's all good. Well, let's follow it up, something for the general masses as far as, becoming a real estate agent. And that would be, we've already kind of framed out and discussed previously. You've mentioned, on a couple of times, the difficulty that it is within the real estate industry. So whether you're a man or a woman, what tip would you give either one of them as far as the challenges of, getting up off the ground and getting past that hurdle of getting a deal, let alone 10 deals?
Real estate is hard. Take it, swallow it, eat it, feel it. Real estate's hard. It's never going to be easy. If it's easy, you probably already quit. Real estate's going to be hard. It's going to be high and it's going to be low, and that roller coaster never stops.
Yes.
So when I talk to new agents, when I talk to new investors, you have to understand you're hopping on a roller coaster, and not like the little dragon ride at, a carnival. You are hopping on one of the Cedar Point rides, and it's going up and fast and low and slow, and it's wild. And you have to be able to weather those storms.
Yeah.
And it's in those low times, you're going to decide whether or not this is right for you. And that's in those low times when you're going to feel like this isn't right, and I need to jump off the ship, and I should be doing something else. And the true strength comes when you say, let me give it one more shot, and you hop back on and you try to get over it. And then that high and that low, they start to get smaller. You'll still feel them. You've just learned to cope with it. And when you first become an agent, you first get into real estate, you get your first check, right? And that check might have taken you 90 days to get to the point where it's about to close. And I will tell you, my first deal was a 4-unit, and we had gotten it off market. And I was going to make, I think, $30,000 on this assignment fee. I had that check cashed in my head. I knew what I was doing with it, what I was buying with it. And at closing, a $600,000 garbage lien came up. Mind you, this is Cleveland, guys. Our price points, that house, I think I was selling for like $140,000 for that
a $600,000 garbage lien?
$600,000 garbage lien. So
what the hell is a garbage lien?
Exactly. That's exactly what I said. So what happened was his brother, but who was a property owner, like a partner with him on another deal, had
Hmm.
left garbage out and they gave him fines for it. And they took that fine and I guess multiplied it against all the properties.
Wow.
And so, yeah,
Wow.
this is like get a lawyer because this is the craziest thing I've ever heard. But that is what I'm telling you. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard. On deal number one, $30,000 is coming in my pocket, and then it was not. It wasn't like find another buyer. Nobody is buying that deal. It's dead. 90 days, it's dead. And you're in this low. Maybe this isn't for me. And then you go back up, and so then you get another deal under contract and it comes again. Eventually they even out. Then I moved into commercial and now I'm back on this roller coaster again a little bit because, now it's taking 9 months for a deal to close and, a 6-figure commission falls through. So I'm back on the roller coaster a little bit, but it's hard. It's meant to be hard because not everyone's meant to do it. But when you're down and it feels low, you have to just push through. Make another phone call, put out another Facebook post, call another person, check in on your family and friends. Whatever you have to do to find that next deal, you find it, or you're going to fail. And those are your
Yeah.
options. I made a post the other day and it was like, you get to choose your hard. Being, what is it? Like working out is hard, but being, I don't know what it was, the whole thing, but you choose your hard. You can
Yeah.
choose to have the schedule that you don't want to and work the 9 to 5 and struggle to make your paychecks and not have the extra money to travel. You could choose that hard because it's easier than making the phone calls and feeling the lows, but you're choosing your hard. This is hard to make the phone calls and to do the work. It's also hard to live the way you would have to if you lived in a 9 to 5.
Yeah. No, I love it. Thanks for sharing that. Um, it's one of the things that we talk about repeatedly for anybody that's in the space of being your own business, small business, entrepreneur journey, whatever classification you want to call it, and trying to really encourage and explain to people, as you kind of said, it's hard, but you know, it's worth it in the long run, right? But
Yeah.
most people are going to tap out. So
Yeah. I tell my
I
coaching clients, I said, look, if you're ready to do it, I'm ready to do it with you. Let's buckle up, put our seatbelts on, and we're going. And you're gonna have highs. I'm gonna be there for those. You're gonna have lows. I'm gonna be there for those. And I'm probably gonna give you answers you don't want to hear in those lows,
yeah
but you need to hear them, and you'll get through them. It's buckle up, buckle up. It's
yeah
fun. It's a blast. Like I can't imagine doing anything else. Even when I'm like, okay, I just lost $100,000 commission. What do I do?
yeah
Make another phone call. It's around the
yeah.
corner.
Well, I was gonna transition to kind of closing down, but I want to make this one more comment and give you a chance to give any feedback as you. But this is I think about this often, and I did my time in service, and then I kind of came into building a business outside of retirement from the military. Long story short is I've been offered multiple multi 6-figure jobs and I can get them because of my background in the military, but I don't want to do that. And now after 5 years of going through all of the highs and lows that you were just kind of articulate in what you said, I'm at the point now where because sometimes if I'm being completely honest, on the earlier stage, did I have those moments where I was thinking to myself, screw it, man. Just go take the job. You're going to get paid 10 G's a month, 12 G's a month, 20 G's a month, whatever, just do it. But now I can't even imagine it. And I'm assuming that one of the latter pieces of the things that you just said that you were trying to also articulate is that you also have all this control over your schedule. So if you need to, in the middle of the day, make a decision for you and your family, you have full latitude to do that, but in a 9 to 5, that's not always the case. In fact, I would argue more times than not, it's not, you can't do that,
Mm-mm. And
thoughts?
the freedom of schedule it's what we
Yes.
all strive after, right? We all strive to have that freedom of schedule. But you know what happens is we let our business take over our entire schedule. We might have the freedom to do what we want. We don't have to be somewhere, but we end up working 30 hours a day. There's 24 hours in a day, but we're all working 30 of them.
Yeah.
And that's hard too. But
Yes.
today, the perfect example, Jamie, and is my son is sick. He's 7 years old. I have a 7-year-old and I have a 3-year-old. And my 7-year-old's sick today. And you know what? I'm at home with him. And before this, I was making him some lunch and I was setting up Mario so that he could play it while we were here. And there is no balance. There's no balance between personal life and work life. It's creating a schedule. And for me, that's been time blocking. And, I will literally turn my phone off and everybody knows. And I let my clients know from 5 to 7, you're not going to reach me because that's when my family time is. And I'm there every morning to make their breakfast, and I don't start work. I'm up at 5:30, but I don't start work until 8:30 because I'm getting the boys ready and doing like my morning things, etc. And so you have to get control of you'll have a free schedule. You'll have that opportunity, but you're going to get lost in it. You're going to work too much. You're going to do the same thing. You're probably going to work more hours than you did before. And so you have to find that balance that allows you to actually have the freedom. And that might be hiring other people out. And that's what it was for me, is finding these team members to bring on, and admins and VAs, to allow you to focus on what you love and what you're good at, so that you can actually enjoy the freedom of schedule. Having the
Yeah.
freedom of schedule isn't enough. You have to enjoy the freedom that comes in that schedule to
Yeah.
actually feel like you're succeeding.
Well, I feel like God allowed us to have this conversation today so I could hear that, because I literally was struggling last night and this morning with what you're saying right now, because I do time block. Here's my problem. My walls are made out of marshmallows, and that's the problem, is I still let shit come in. And then it's like, well, what was the point? Because I let the distractions, or I'll see something unfortunately, and then I'll be like, oh, I have to handle that. And then it just destroys everything. So again, great job on not only lining it out, but just emphasizing the fact that you got to be committed to that, because otherwise you're 100% right. Every single entrepreneur, probably in some facet, in some, level, has allowed time creep to just come to the point where you're just grinding the entire day.
And we don't
There's
see it
no
as a
downtime.
problem, right? Because we enjoy it. We like doing it. So we don't even see it as a problem. It's our families who see it as a problem. And for
Yeah.
me, it was the realization that, I have a 3 and a 7-year-old, and I'm not playing with them enough. And I only have so many years of them being little. And I realized that I can't build my empire now and miss that opportunity, because it's not going to be there later. I could build slower, find different ways to build so that I could enjoy those moments with them. And for
Yeah.
me, like investors, I love investors because I don't work nights and weekends. Every weekend I go camping with my family. This weekend we're going to Idlewild Park in Pennsylvania, and I don't work nights because I'm with my family. That's what my admin, that's what a VA is for.
Yeah. Well, look, you just said it so perfectly. For any aspiring people that want to be into the commercial real estate lane, Erin just lined it out for you. Number one, it's hard. Two, you better be willing to put in the work. And three, once you get there, um, typically investors don't have the same emotional baggage that residential buyers do. And yes, I just said that. And yes, I'll probably piss some people off, but that's one of the reasons why I don't like residential, because it's an emotional transaction. But for investors, 99% of the time, there's no emotions to it, unless their great Granny Smith is the one who owned that property before. That's it.
If I can find their buy box, they want a single family house in Lakewood that's under this price point, that's occupied at this rent, they buy it. If I try to find the same thing for a homeowner, they're like, well, the doorbell had this funny ring, and then this one room kind of had a small closet. What? What? I don't understand. Like, you said you wanted A, B, and C, and I got you A, B, and C. And so I praise my investors. I love my investors. I love all you homeowners. I am a homeowner, but yeah, it's a different
Look,
market. It takes a different person.
I'm not hating on it either. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. And again, I actually have 4 residentials, and I'm very grateful because they're providing monetary value for me and my family. What I'm simply saying is, like, when I talk to the owners of the firm that I work for, I say, listen, I like residential, or commercial, because it's not emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I've never brought an investor, to include myself, who walks in and sees a holes in the wall and is like, well, I'm not buying it. The first question that they're asking is, how much does that cost to replace? That's the only thing people are thinking about. And
Right.
is it worth
It's
it?
all
And if it
numbers.
is, great. But
It's numbers.
yeah, you nailed it. I could go off on that, but I won't. In fact, we've been out for a little while, so I'm going to close it down with two things. The first thing I would like to do is just offer you a chance, if you would either share like some piece of advice, or maybe your favorite book or a podcast or a show, or anything that you think would be a great tip that you would like to share with any aspiring entrepreneur who's kind of on the fence of like, do I or do I not, take this leap of faith?
Ooh, I love this question. It's a deep question. And I'll tell you, I think the number one thing, if you're on the fence, even if you're not on the fence, if you're in a place where you're struggling, or if you're in a place where you're succeeding, in any of those areas, I think you need a coach. In every
Mm,
one of those areas, I think you need a coach. I had 2 coaches at one point. one that was on commercial and one that was kind of more business and all real estate related. Find yourself that mentor who's going to guide you in whatever path it takes. Like the path with a coach might lead you to say, this isn't right for me. And that's a great coach. But you need to have a coach that A, is going to help you build the foundation. Otherwise, you're just going to struggle. Or you need the coach that's going to put you on the path to help you say, hey, look, you're doing really well, but here's why you're not going up to a level. I've got 2 of the coaching agents on my team. They're doing phenomenal numbers, phenomenal. And I told both of them, I said, all right, so you're at your ceiling. And they're like, what? You're at your ceiling, because there's no way you can keep selling the amount of houses you're selling and still make more money. You have to get a higher price point. You've hit where you are, you have to go to a higher price point. And only a coach is going to tell you that. So whether you're struggling, whether you're succeeding, wherever you are in this business mindset, go after your mentors, find people that you admire, see what they're doing, and talk to coaches until you find one that's right for you. They're not all going to be right. Find one that fits what you need. And even if it's short term, have somebody in your corner who's helping you see what you don't know, what you don't see. You don't know what you don't know. And that's exactly what happens in real estate is we don't see what's maybe right in front of our nose. We don't see what's just around that corner, and we give up before we turn that corner because we didn't know it was right there. And we all, I think, fail because we doubt ourselves, and a coach should help you do that. So number one is get a coach for sure. And if you need guidance on that, like I'm happy to help anybody, find the right person. Reading books has changed my life. I'll be honest. The first thing I do every morning when I read up is read books. And for me in this season of my life, 10X is easier than 2X was a staple. I just finished it. And now I'm reading Buy Back Your Time, but 10X is easier than 2X just opened my mind to how much bigger I should be thinking, how much bigger I should be doing. And so that was a really, really big book for me that I could recommend.
Yeah, that's a great book. I just recently read it as well, like a few months back. Phenomenal book. And I just want to emphasize how I love your response about the emphasis on coaching, because to be brutally honest, like I didn't even really consider coaching as anything, like not because I was against it per se. I didn't even really know it was a thing. And then when I did find out it was a thing, then I got sticker shock because some people throw me some prices and I was like, holy crap, I got to pay you what? And I was like, shit, I'll learn that stuff myself. But to realize is you're compressing your time. And as I'm listening to you, I'm like, it's not just that you're compressing your time and because you're getting distance. I mean, you're getting direction, but also is, in many instances, they may be your only cheerleader, right? Depending on what your circle is, which as a coach, you're probably helping them to clean that up as well. So anyway, phenomenal advice for anybody listening is, coaching cannot be overemphasized enough, and it's worth the investment. I had to make sure that.
Yeah, it's 100% worth it. It's honestly, you're going to cost yourself money if you don't do it. It was like hiring an admin. You're going to lose money if you don't hire an admin. You're going to lose money if you don't hire the coach, because how are you going to know where that ceiling is? How are you going to know have you been there? Have you done it before that you know what to do? Yeah. I haven't. Yeah. I built my entire business, and you had mentioned earlier how I did it so quickly. And I'm going to give you the secret. This is how I did it so quickly. I would talk to somebody and I kind of do the fake it till you make it mentality. And if someone's like, hey, can you list this triplex for me? Like, I'm just starting out. Can you list this triplex for me? Yeah, definitely. I can definitely handle that. And I would turn around and I would go to somebody who listed a bunch of triplexes and say, hey, I will give you 50% of my commission. Will you teach me how you do this? And I did that on single families, on duplexes, on apartment buildings. I still do that to this day. Like if somebody came to me and said, hey, can you list this hospital? I've never listed a hospital. So I'm going to go find someone who lists hospitals, and I'm going to say, I'll give you 50% of my commission, because I want to make it worth their time to coach me. I want them to teach me what they're doing. I don't want to just give off the referral because I'm not learning. I want them to teach me what they need to do, and it needs to be worth their time. And by giving these people 50% of my commission, A, I came from abundance. That's the key. 2, it was worth their time to teach me, and they went all in on me. And so I learned so much about each different field and how each different person did it that I could formulate, again, my own answer from it. This is how this person does their photos. This is how this person does their walkthroughs. And I put it together for myself. And that was my first probably experience with coaching. But yeah, take that and then give away whatever you have to give away. I don't 50% of your commission, 70% of your commission, if it's going to set you up for the future of your career, who cares?
I hope that anybody listening to this is really taking heed to what you're saying, because honestly, this is one of those things where I'm driving down the road and it goes through my mind, and I just keep asking myself the same question. Why do people not do this? It doesn't make any sense to me. And even listening to you, I'm like, that is incredibly pragmatic and rational. Why does that not make no sense? But I think we both know what the real answer is. The answer is, but Erin, then I'm going to give up my commission, which you very eloquently lined out what the value was in that. But unfortunately, there are people that are so obsessed about what's that saying, tripping over dollars to pick up cents or whatever that saying is. Like, it's like, no, I'm going to keep 100%. And you're like, yeah. I mean, you said it incredibly well. I'm going to stop because I don't need to regurgitate what you just said. So yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. The emphasis on coaching and how much it can help you. Let's close it out with this then, please. Can you please just take a minute? If anybody wants to get a hold of Erin Thomas, what's the best way? What platforms are you on? How would you like somebody to get in contact with you, particularly maybe some new investors who are seeing you for the first time? How do we get a hold of you?
Sure. So I'm on all the things. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook. I built my business on Facebook, so that's probably my most used one. And you can find me at Erin Thomas Sells, all one word. And I'm an Irish girl, so it's ERIN Thomas Sells. You're also welcome to email me, and my email is just Erin Thomas at ezsalesteam.com. But yeah, find me on Facebook, find me on Instagram, shoot me a DM. I'm on LinkedIn. And whether it's a question about real estate, whether it's a question about coaching, whether it's a question about entrepreneurship, I didn't mention this, but one of my first jobs was actually as the executive assistant to one of the co-founders of Priceline.com. So when it comes to entrepreneurship, I have world's best mentor entrepreneur in my corner, and
Wow.
he's taught me a lot of what I know, and he's an incredible friend to this day. And but so that guidance, that clarity, sometimes you just need that person, like you said, to root for you. If you need that person to root for you, I'm happy to do it. And then, Jamie, we should throw in there too, like legacy family, like being in those mastermind groups and putting yourself in the rooms, how we met, that has its own power. If you want to succeed, if you feel like you're not succeeding, or you just want to go further, put yourself in the right room. And legacy family for me has been that mastermind group that has built a community, but also allowed me to build my business. And, so you can also find me at networking events for that as well.
Yeah, no, I will just say this. I was going to close it out, but I want to respond to say that I 100% agree. I'm on that soapbox all the time about joining masterminds and getting in the room with other people. And I say that because there's so many people in there that can serve so many different, you can add value to them, they add value to you. And Tim's and Legacy Family is a phenomenal one. In fact, I just tagged somebody in a post yesterday on Facebook because I sat down here for 1 hour talking to them, and I was like, dude, you need to be in one of these groups, right? But he's definitely one of those type of people where I think he needs to process it on his own time, because again, well, that costs money. I'm like, I know, I hear you. And then I always ask the same rhetorical question to each one of them. If I told you that you invested $10,000 today, but you knew you were going to get 100,000 back in the next 12 months, would you do it? And the answer, of course, is yes. And so I'm like, you either have faith in what these things and values they're going to bring, or you don't. But you'll be able to scale, but you'll never be able to scale at that same level, and you'll never scale as fast. So well said. I agree with you 100%. And with that, thank you very much for taking your time out of your day, particularly when I know that your son is not feeling well. So I hope he feels well, gets better. And thank you so much for sharing your perspective. And as always, we're just hoping that your message and your story resonates with somebody, educates them, inspires them, and then hopefully can even reach out and contact you and connect you with other people. So thanks, Erin. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jamie. This has been awesome.
Awesome. Talk to you later.